Hey Scott, how are you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Very good, very good. So good to see you again after a month.
Yeah, how is everything going?
Great. It's awesome. Well, I mean, some things are awesome and other things are challenging.
Yeah.
That's the more honest response here. So you can hear me okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. So you're in your house today.
Yep. I think last
Okay.
time I talked to you, I hadn't yet mastered the Zoom and I couldn't get my audio or video on or whatever, but I think,
Okay. Yeah. And most of your YouTube videos are taken basically outside.
yep. So
And
I
you
haven't been doing that recently because it's cold and I actually use the iPhone
Okay.
to
Oh,
do
you're
everything.
using your phone every time.
Oh, yes. So I
That's
have
pretty
a
good
phone and a
quality.
camera and
And do you have like that what do they call it? The polar vortex over there? Where it's like
uh,
that cold snap? Is it down in your part of the country?
it feels like it. Yes, I think it is. It's been like negative 12, 13, 14, 15 most days. So,
Okay. All right. It's colder than Vancouver. I used to live in a very cold part of Asia in the winter, so like I don't mind -20, but I guess
yeah.
it gets over that. So great. So today we're gonna talk about pandemic depression, right?
So,
So just wondering, did you get any like feelings of depression these last few months or last few
I
weeks?
mean, they were kind of depressing. I mean, we can't see people. It's pretty sad. Like, we can't have our friends, family over, and that's something we want to do. And, myself personally, like, my dog passed away. So, a big part of
Oh my, oh sorry.
it, thanks. And
And you
we're
had this dog for how many years?
close to 13.
13. Oh my gosh. But for a dog, isn't that sort of like 80 years?
Probably something like that. It's definitely lived a good and long life.
Wow. Yeah, but you're still, I mean, they're still grieving because they're almost kind of like a human friend to you in a way, right?
Absolutely. Oh, that's. I think they're better than human friends. They love you no matter what. So
Yeah, it's like the animals are so nice to us. And then we call each other names. We use animal words to call each other names, right?
mhm.
You ever, like the B word? I always wonder a female dog is like probably the best, the nicest animal on the planet. And we use the B word first against women, and now we use it against everybody.
That's true.
And I'm thinking that's a beautiful, it should be a beautiful word. Why are we using that as a bad word? So, oh my gosh. And I mean, so is your place in complete lockdown or sort of half lockdown, or things have been up and down, right?
So we just got put on. I think it was like a modified lockdown. So it's not like the stay-at-home order. That's what we had in Ontario. It was technically a stay-at-home order, but I don't really. I mean, people could still go out, and it was only for
Okay.
essentials. But now they opened it back up, and I think that like normal stores and some services are running right now.
Okay. Yeah, we've been in holding pattern here in British Columbia for since October, basically. It's kind of been like half lockdown, and our numbers have been around the 400, 500 range
Oh,
population of, but we're like probably only 30% of you. We're like, I think 4.5 million. Not that many people here in BC, 4 or 5 million. So, wow. And I know some people got COVID. Have you known some people now?
I've known a couple people, not like that I was really friends with them, that I knew them to call them or whatever. But I do know a couple people, and they're posting on Facebook and stuff and saying like, it. I guess like one person had said, "Okay, I guess it is real," and they were actually a non-believer before, and they said, "Okay, yeah, it's real." So
I
that
don't,
I
you know,
I hate to say it, but it was nice to see.
2021, we're still having this conversation. It's like going outside. Is the air real? Are those trees real? I mean, I just can't believe we're talking like this. Oh my gosh. Anyways, no, but I know somebody who got it, and then apparently she's like very strong. She works outside every day, but she felt like a train wreck for about a week or two.
Hmm.
And then we just got news today that a couple of First Nations youth, like young adults on Vancouver Island, they died of
Oh
COVID, right?
no.
So people are thinking, well, if you're healthy, you'll survive. And it's like, it's not just because that you have pre-existing conditions. It could do whatever. It could do weird things to your body, right? You never
Absolutely.
know. It's like, do you ever see those movies where they do Russian roulette? They got the gun and then they're kind of rolling it,
Yeah.
and you put one bullet in. It's like people who are risking it. It's kind of like they're playing Russian roulette. It's like, yeah, you might feel a little bit oozy for a week, or you might get on a ventilator tube. You never know. Why risk
Absolutely.
it?
I agree.
So, yeah. So, I mean, for some people, it has been depressing. And I think for me, it's been kind of like, I haven't been like really depressed. There's two kinds, right, of depression. There's like the sort of like the one that's in your DNA. It's like what they call clinical depression, right? And then there's the other one that's more like situational,
Hmm.
right? Your life sucks, so you get depressed, right? Or whatever. It could
Absolutely.
be you're not your life, but everything outside, not you personally, but it's all the external circumstances. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people have lost their dreams too.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know some people like that, but
Not personally, but especially being like a small business owner, I understand that. Like, I don't have overheads or anything like that, but I couldn't imagine when, and I'm guessing when you say dreams, like I think businesses and what they, jobs and houses. I couldn't imagine losing everything to this pandemic.
yeah, a lot of people have been like uh, put out of work, and I know a lot of people also, they graduated like me. I graduated December 2018, and then it was hard to look for a job. Got a few interviews, and then boom, the pandemic happened, and I didn't get like any interviews. I had a couple recently, rejection letters sent by email. So, but people have dreams, right? And then everything, for some people, it's been put on hold, right?
Absolutely.
So, so that's so in this talk we kind of agreed about talking about like how do we overcome this, right? So now I was thinking about there's two kinds of people. One is the people who are like working and working, and they're so busy. So maybe for them it's a little bit easier. I don't know. It depends on your work, right? If you're around people, you're worried all day, you're in masks, you're all worried about people breathing on you. I think that would get stressful for an 8-hour job, right?
I think it can definitely be stressful, especially if you're dealing with it all the time. But on the other hand, I think it just comes down to a mental attitude. Like, you can think of it's stressful doing it, you're still working, but other people might not be working and they could find it stressful because they might not know what to do with their time.
Yeah, so that's the second kind of people. Got there was a song in the 70s. It's called "Too Much Time on My Hands," right? So it's just like sticks. I'm old, right? So yeah, because I know people, it's like they're working and time just flies, right? And they're kind of like, why is everybody so anxious? Well, it's because a lot of people been at home for like almost a year now. And then yeah, and then the other people so when I was writing up my list of pandemic busters, well, look at that zoom. It was like it just depends on your situation, right? So yeah, so how about you give us something on your list there?
Okay, so I guess I made a couple things, and I looked at your list, and your list ended up being very similar to mine. But one thing that I wrote down was looking towards the future and imagining a specific situation that you really want happen.
Okay, is that
So I,
similar? I wrote something, it's called sort of what is it, plan your post pandemic.
yes.
Yeah, plan your post pandemic, because Remember in summer, everybody's like, oh, this is, no, this was in spring. It's like, oh, this is going to be over in a couple months. And this is history. Everybody write a journal because you're going to look back and on those 2 or 3 brutal months and it will just be, wow, we went through this together. And then it just keeps going on and on and going up and down and getting worse. And people and then they talked about, was it, pandemic fatigue, and now it's just like, I think we're beyond the fatigue, we're just numb, right? So how do you plan for this nowadays when like we don't even know the outcome, like we don't even know who's going to be left standing?
Exactly. So I think all we got to do is
scammer call from another country. Sorry, I thought I turned this thing off. They call me every 2 days. You're going to be arrested by the Canadian government. You were for tax fraud. Yeah. Do you get those calls? If anybody's listening and you're the one scamming us, stop now. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So where were we?
Talking about, I think we're talking about like the future and how do we deal with.
So I'm saying, like, how do you plan for it when it's so uncertain?
I think we just got to like do our best, keep remembering that we are going to come out of this one day, whether it's in 2 months, whether it's in 2 years, like, and I'm just talking from a 32-year-old, I've never went through a pandemic, anything like that. And, I look at my grandparents, they went through some stuff in the 20s and the 30s and all that. And I think, what? Life is going to eventually go on, and we just have to make ourselves stronger and deal with it the way we, the only ways we can.
Right, exactly. And, maybe your plan will be brilliant, right? Planning is one thing. Actually starting to spend money to make the plan put into place, now that's a risk you have to be thinking about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know if anybody wants to challenge Amazon right now or make a plan like that, but who knows, there might be room in the market for you. So what about just like the body? Because I saw in your videos, you talk about, you said something, I think it was a few videos ago, you talked about when you're an adult, every day is you're improving yourself, right? Every day is just, you keep improving yourself every day. It's sort of what we tell kids, right? Learn more every day, improve yourself. So one of the things for that is like taking care of your body, right? And you're an expert in that. You're a fitness trainer.
Yes.
Yeah. So for example, what about sleep? How important is sleep?
Oh, it is absolutely so important. If your sleeping is completely messed up, I mean, you're not going to feel great. You're not going to take on the world. I mean, we sleep a huge amount, like 1% of our lives are, I don't want to say away, but we sleep. We have to regenerate everything. So yeah, absolutely. Like having a good sleeping schedule is super important. If you're waking up some days at 4 a.m., then sometimes at 10 a.m. and all over the map, I mean, you're not going to be on track. You're not going to have your morning routine and have everything set into place.
Yeah, but it's easier for working people, isn't it? If you've got to, you've got to be up at 6 a.m.
And I think that's great, being on a schedule, having something to do. Because if we're all left to, just live however we want, we wake up when we wake up, I don't think that people would wake up at the same time. I don't think we are people of habits, but I don't think a lot of us have that drive to say, okay, right, first thing, a.m., I need to wake up, shower, workout, goal set, or do whatever it is we do in the mornings.
Yeah, exactly. I remember last podcast, I don't know if I mentioned, I was trying to aim at 11 p.m. every night, wake up at 7 or something. So I'm sort of doing that. I found myself drifting. And it's like later and later every time. And I wake up, like, I'm wondering the next day, why am I so grouchy? Why I feel so tired, And anyways, I put up right under the refrigerator, it says in bed at 11, remind myself. So I'm like, okay, pull it back, try to aim for, around 11:30-ish or 11-ish. So yeah. I mean, do you think that if people lack sleep, do you think they'll like make more mistakes or
Oh, for sure. Not only will they make more mistakes, they won't be, on their game. So if I had a great night's sleep and say, for example, doing this interview, if I had a crappy sleep, I'm going to probably listen to you and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, what did you say again? Or, you're just not going to be on your game with anything. You're not going to remember stuff. If you read something after a crappy night's sleep, you're probably not, it's not going to be imprinted in your mind. And, I just think we do a lot better when we wake up at the same time every single day, go to bed at the same time every single day.
right? Now you want to hear something funny? I don't know. The other night I was just feeling like I just took some blank piece of paper and wrote down all the people over the last few years that I've offended or hurt, any big drama or scandals or whatever that I made. And I think, if you go back in a time machine, you'll find out the night before I got a crappy sleep,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just the lack of sleep contributed to me either like dozy or you're hyper. You're just, hyper, especially if you drink lots of coffee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, oh yeah, I cut coffee
Oh,
already three
nice.
weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
I,
Are you sleeping a lot better?
um, maybe, yeah, I guess so. It's
Are
more
you drinking
like a
more?
straight 7 hours or whatever, and it's good enough. I use this fake coffee from Poland. It's made out of chicory. So now I'm not telling everybody to stop drinking coffee because I think Tim Hortons and McDonald's or a lot of places will go bankrupt, Starbucks. But anyways, you can drink decaf, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, that was a big thing for me. I've been drinking for years and years. Okay, so how about another thing with the body too? Now, I saw in a lot of your YouTube videos, you're talking about just like exercising, right? Like all kinds of exercise, indoors, outdoors. Even if your gym is closed, just get out there. So what do you recommend for that?
I mean, it comes down to what are you actually going to do? So, I mean, if I said the best thing to do is do squats outside with logs. Now, if you're going to do that, that's great. If you're not going to do that, I mean, I'd say the first and most important thing is find something that you're actually going to do, not something that in theory you can write it on a fridge and be like, oh yeah, I should be doing my stairs. So I mean, if it's cold out, like right now, it's freezing out. You have a set of stairs. If you just run up and down the stairs, we're used to running it up the stairs once and that's it. But if we times that by, up and down 5 times, I would bet that anybody's heart rate is going to go up.
Okay, but you're not going to run up and down the stairs if there's ice on it, right? Unless you want to split your
No.
head open.
Oh no, I can like get in the house.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I told you, like I was I was so tired of just like working part-time, and I ran out and did landscaping during the rainiest month of Vancouver, which is November. And the last day I slipped on a stair, an outdoor stair, and my body was shouting at me, "So you got to stop this job. You're going to get so tired and you're going to slip and you're going to be a goner." So anyway, when you're talking about stairs, I kind of like, oh, PTSD,
Yeah.
stairs, watch out for those stairs. So, and okay, so now don't they teach you in all these fitness trainer classes that it's great to have a goal of maybe say 30 minutes a day where you're getting your heart rate up, where you're letting the blood flow and maybe breaking out in a sweat? Is that
Absolutely.
advisable, or at least every 2 days?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So like what I'd usually recommend to most average people is if you're going to work out and say, you got to choose a split, make a plan, whatever it is. So I'll just give you an example. If you're going to be doing it every other day, what I suggest is if somebody's doing a workout every other day to do a full body workout. That way you actually get the rest in between. If you have the motivation and you're, pumped up and you think you're going to work out 5 days a week, try and do like an upper lower split or a front and back split, like split up the exercises. But you definitely need, to for muscle groups, one muscle group that you've just worked, just to kind of relax, give it a day. You don't want to do squats, a whole bunch of squats or deadlifts one day and then the next day you do the same thing because you haven't had time to recover yet.
Okay, so the goal here is, it might be to lose weight. It might be to get your body, your butt shape, your everything shape looking good, right?
Mhm.
But you know, I skipped a day of exercise, and I was hurting. Like my muscles were kind of sore, and it was like not because I overused them, it's because I didn't use them. So do you think that happens to people? If you go like a while and you're used to exercising and then you don't do it, it's like your muscles are crying out to you and say, come on, you
Um,
work with me.
I haven't seen that happen too often. I mean, the only thing I can think of would be maybe you really pushed yourself that day that you worked out and you had DOMS, it's called delayed onset muscle soreness, completely overworking. But um, I mean, it's definitely a mental thing. If you're so used to working out and then you skip a day, you just kind of feel like, oh, I need to have that workout.
Yeah, but if you skip 3 weeks, you get used to it, right?
Oh yeah.
That's the
So easy to,
problem.
it's easy
That's
to
the
form a
problem.
good habit and it's easy to form a bad habit. So
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is like kind of a little bit off, but you were talking about pets, right? And I saw you did a YouTube video. So, like getting a new pet, having a pet around, like how can that help people?
well, it's so important. Like mentally, you have pets have unconditional love. I mean, if I locked my wife in a trunk and I took her out, she'd be pretty mad at me. If I did that to my dog, they'd just be happy to see me. And
Sounds
I
like a
mean,
heist movie or something, one of these horror movies.
like and to me, I think like we're on the in the process of getting another dog right now, and to me, it almost seems like they're kind of like a personal trainer. So if I don't want to go for a walk, and that dog's like, yeah, you need to take me out. They push you to get out. If you're not naturally, a nature person, you don't love to go out. I think that a dog is going to kind of like force you, and some people might perceive it as, oh, this dog has so much energy, but I just think it's motivating you just to move more and do better and be outside more.
Yeah, I saw. Do you know? Ever heard of this guy? What's his name? Neil Tyson DeGrasse or something? He's a scientist and science communicator in the U.S., African American fellow, and he showed a video about like his dog rolling around, and then he said, "You see this dog? The dog. Why does the dog like so? Why does it act so enthusiastic? It's because this dog knows that its days are numbered." And that it might pass away after 10 years, so it's kind of like really seizing the day, just like make every
Mhm.
moment count. So that's how he interpreted it, right? I don't know. I mean, is that how animals operate? They know every time they wake up, it says, this might be my last day on earth, I gotta party, right?
Well, I never thought of it that way, but I guess, like animals, I think, are smart. And same thing with children. You ask a child something, they'll give you like a flat out answer. They don't sugarcoat things. And animals, in my opinion, like they have so many natural instincts, unlike us, because we learn stuff from society. And if you look at, how do animals know to dig holes, or there's all these concepts and theories to why they do things. And it's not like you see like the parents teaching them, this is how you give birth, this is how you do this. They just naturally know what to do to survive. So I think animals are amazing in that way, that they just know what to do.
And so if you hang out with animals, that joy kind of rubs off on you, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if how can anybody possibly be sad when a dog is, sitting by them, looking at them, happy and excited?
With puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, there's no way to be sad or mad or angry about that. And I think that they're such stress relievers. If you're feeling down and out, they might make you feel better. Like I don't. It's not often that you are around a dog or an animal and say, "Yeah, this dog's making me feel crappy."
Yeah, exactly. Now, and they can be part of your bubble, right? Remember,
Mhm.
they talk about, oh, your bubble, keep your bubble small, right? And they're a major part of your bubble. Now, talking about bubbles, I'm just wondering about, I wrote something down like enjoy your bubble,
Mhm.
like just for example, conflict resolution. Like you might there might be times in the pandemic that people really get on each other's nerves and they start arguing and fighting and maybe putting their fists through the wall, and then you have to, fix the drywall. I don't know. They might be just going crazy together because you're always together. But I mean, do you think people can kind of like just work through that conflict, solve things, and then just have a great time together instead of a crappy time, right? Kind of flip that over.
Hmm. I think it's all, like anything in this world is perspective or perception. So depending on who you live with, and you might find out real quick that you don't like that person that you live with. And I'm sure a lot of people have done that. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, after this pandemic, I'm getting rid of this person.
Yeah.
But, and like when it comes to bubbles and all that, like for our bubble personally, like it's just my wife and I. And even though the government said, like, you can have a bubble, a bubble of 5 or a bubble of 10,
Yeah. Very,
I
very
think
few people.
I think that concept is flawed because if you have a bubble and those two are, say there's 3 other people in the bubble, do I know for sure that they didn't just go to Walmart and catch COVID, or did they just happen to see their neighbor? So to me, I think I don't really trust anybody. Not that I don't
Okay.
like it or
No, I was
trust it.
talking about bubble, like maybe your immediate family. That's sort of the smallest bubble, right? The nuclear
Oh,
family. But um, but just on what you said, way back in October when they put the restrictions on, I found out after 2 weeks that I was breaking them. I
hmm.
went and read the BC regulations, and it said don't hang out with anybody outside your immediate family. And so I had to kind of reduce a couple contacts there. And I kept thinking, logically, you're right. Who knows if they talk to their neighbor? And it takes like what, 10, 15 minutes to breathe COVID onto somebody else, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's like, have my COVID, baby, right? It's like, it's scary and you don't know where the person's been, right?
Hmm.
And then if they go with person X and person X went with person Y, and it's like you're kind of opening the door to trouble, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I like your idea about the bubble, but it's just about like trying to be kind to the people in your bubble, right? And you're like, okay, if we're going to be stuck together, let's just try to work through things and to get along, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
think
had to do that personally. Now, what about another issue about like keeping your needs met, right? Like that's the one of the bottom line things is that you've got to have enough money coming in. You got to either pay the bills or like reduce the bills, cut off this service, cut off that service. You got to make sure you're staying afloat financially, right?
mhm.
And having your needs met. So,
So I
mm, I-
definitely, I'm a big supporter of, you know, do something entrepreneurial. I mean, we all have a skill that we can do, whether you're fitness training, whether you make crafts, whether you cook, whether you do anything. Like there's anything that you can do, like if you're not able to work. And I mean, right now, I guess pretty much everybody ish should be back to work. But I think that, financially, like there's definitely ways to cut costs instead of eating as much whatever you eat. If you're eating out, I mean, write it down. Say, okay, well, I've actually been spending 60, $70 or whatever a week on takeout. And because I'm now making, 60, 70%, should definitely cut that down. And just writing all that stuff down, knowing how much money's coming in, knowing how much money's coming out. I just think, it's easy to live our lives the way that we had lived before if we were making more. And some people are making more because of the pandemic.
right.
Um, but I think
No,
it's just
no,
staying on top of what we're making and what we're spending.
yeah, exactly. And some of the habits we have of spending money, don't you think, we think that, oh, if I stop this, I'm going to be feeling really bad, right? And so I
Mhm.
don't dare stop this. And then maybe because you're forced to or you want to, you change it. And then you say, well, it's not that bad,
Mhm.
right? like giving up coffee didn't really kill me. It wasn't the end of the world. And we couldn't see any movies. We were like big movie fans. We like to go all the time.
Hmm.
That sucks up a lot of money.
Oh, for sure. The $20
You know,
popcorn.
movie tickets and everything. Yeah, the popcorn is like, I can make it in my house for like what, 50 cents. You can get it in the theater for $7, one of those big things. $8. Oh my gosh. So yeah, just trying to keep to what do they say, lean mean and lean mean fighting machine, just keep it lean, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. And a lot of Asian cultures, they save money, like they try to put a little bit aside.
Hmm.
And I got to admit, I'm not really good at that, but I want to be good at it. Just taking a little extra instead of, oh, we did our tax. Justin Trudeau says I owe $1,200. I don't have an extra $1,002 to pay Justin back. Oh my gosh, they're going to be charging me every month with interest, right?
Hmm.
I don't know if that's ever happened to you, but it happened to me, I think 2 years ago.
Oh no, I've gotten surprisingly lucky with that. I don't think I've ever had to owe. I think once maybe it was like 50 cents, but they made you pay it.
Yeah. Well, no, I had so many years they're paying me back every year. And then all of a sudden I said, oh, I've been a full-time student. I've been studying hard. They're going to reimburse me this year. Nope. I owe them. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's good to if you can take a simple tax course just to learn about tax. It's something so kind of boring and frustrating, but if you know about it and you save a little bit, you feel happy, right?
Oh, for sure. That's actually something that I started doing from the pandemic is slowly investing money. And
Okay.
I mean, I think it was right when the pandemic started. I was sitting at the dinner table and it was the day the stock market had crashed. And my mother-in-law had said, wow, now today would be the time to get into the stock market.
Oh yeah.
Well, after hearing that, I thought, I never want to miss out on this opportunity again. So I had went and done all my own research and actually said, well, the stocks didn't actually jump right back up. So that's, one other thing. And slowly from this pandemic, the bit of money that I've been making and putting in there it's slowly growing. So, and we were just talking about, saving money and all that, but starting to learn all those things, I think is super important, especially if you never had time to learn that kind of
Well,
stuff.
that's a good post-pandemic plan then. When you start making a little bit extra instead of buying things that you don't need and fill up your closet, maybe invest.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I was wondering about something like about keeping learning, just always be learning. Now, this actually happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I shouldn't, I, have you ever been jobless? I don't know. I've been laid off and looking for jobs so many times in the last 10 years. And it's like, what's going on? Is it me or the job market? Or is it both? Right. And it's like every time you look online, it's like, whoa, there's like no jobs today. And it
Hmm.
just kind of makes me feel depressed. It's like there's not even anything to apply for. And then, it's like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to end? Right. So, you know what I did? I said, okay, I'm going to learn Spanish. It's like a weird
Wow.
thing. But I learned a little bit a few years ago and didn't really get very far. But I decided, okay, if I got extra time, I'm just going to put it in. And I've done language learning in the past, and it's kind of feels like you're making progress, right?
Hmm.
Feels like you're improving your brain, you're doing something, you're active. And right now I can't really meet Spanish speaking people except maybe if I find them on Zoom or Facebook, but in the future I'm sure I'll meet a lot of people like that, right?
Hmm.
So now I'd love to learn a First Nations language, but like where I live, they're also like small languages, like really small with maybe a few hundred or few thousand who speak them. So I don't know, maybe
It's
one day I'll learn Cree. It's like the national language. It stretches from BC all the way to where you are, right?
hmm it's
And
honestly, I found it. I took a course, and I only know this because it came up on my Facebook memory. It was about a year ago that I started to learn Nishnawbe Moan, and and I don't know if I'm exactly saying the word right,
Nishabe okay.
Anishinaabe and I'm
Anishinaabe no Moan,
saying
okay.
it right, and it is hard.
I know.
It's
I had some guests from there, and then I was looking up on this language website. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, there's 3 ways to say hello. Was it? Yeah. Anyways, I forgot them now, but that language is actually, I think it's like maybe the second biggest or one of the biggest in Ontario where you are, right?
I'm not sure, honestly.
It's pretty big though,
Like,
and it's called
well,
Anishinaabe.
yes.
Moen. What's the old word? Wasn't there like another word like long time ago, like Iroquois or Mohawk
Like
or
some people call it like Ojibwe.
Ojibwe? That's the old
Yeah.
name. Okay, now that's kind of been around for many many years, so I would remember
So
that.
I forget exactly what the relationship is. It's kind of like the way we speak it on the island. When I say we, I'm not really saying me personally
Okay,
because I'm not that great at the language, but it's very much like the way you would spell something or say something there would be different than somewhere else. And if you say a word, someone from somewhere else might know what that means.
right.
So I don't know how to
So
exactly explain
it's not like
that.
you're gonna be, and I think just one little comment on this. I think people in Canada, US, this really boggles our mind because we're thinking, wow, I mean, come on, you just live a few kilometers away. But you got to kind of put your mind into Europe or another continent where, like, every hour of driving, you'll get into a totally different language or culture, right? And
Oh
that's
yeah,
Canada. That's the US. That's the way if the Europeans hadn't come, it would be like probably 200 different nations,
for
right?
sure.
It would just be like, it would make Europe look like nothing, right? Be so many languages. Now that actually got me thinking. In the last few years, I think this is something good for everybody for overcoming pandemic depression. It's like to kind of, if you don't know about your culture much, like start learning. And if you do know about it, well, either deepen that knowledge or learn something new. So I'm just wondering, like, what got you curious to kind of reconnect with your culture?
So I think the first time, so maybe I think the first time was probably I was doing like an alcohol recovery thing, and it was at this kind of recovery center in Toronto, CAMH. So that's where I got first started to learn about smudging, um, and a couple other things like that. Wasn't Didn't really know what I was doing, but then throughout my sobriety, I joined the military and did one of the military programs, and they called it the Aboriginal CFAP program, and there was a Black Bear program, and there was a cultural component to that. So that is what originally sparked me into getting to know the culture. And
Okay.
knowing nothing, it opened up a whole different ballgame of learning.
Okay. Now, so your background is that you didn't really grow up in it as a child, right? As a teenager?
I didn't.
Like, like you didn't
Oh,
have
growing
it,
in the culture.
like you didn't like grow up somewhere where it's like every day and it's just kind of normal, right? You had to kind of relearn it as an adult, right?
Absolutely. I knew nothing. I think might have been 25, 26 years old,
Wow.
where I didn't even identify as a First Nations person. So, and I kind of knew that was my heritage, but I didn't, like, my mom knew nothing. Like, my family is not really that well versed in any of that type of stuff. So I
Okay.
kind
And
of learned it on my own
okay,
slowly.
so basically, in Canada, lots of people from other countries don't really understand like what's like on reserve, off reserve. That I guess most, not all, but most First Nations have like this piece of land, and it's called a reserve, right?
Yep.
And then it's usually the crappy land. It's like the settlers, the Europeans, like took the greatest, the best, the juiciest, the nicest pieces of meat, the pieces of land, and then kind of gave the table scraps, right? But
Mhm.
land is very important, but there are like a lot of groups where it's like 50% or 80% of people are off reserve. That like means you're in Toronto, you're in Calgary, you're in Winnipeg or Vancouver, right? Like just in a total, just move to the big city, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think
And you
there's,
grew up in the big city.
oh yeah, I grew up in Toronto and, born and raised in Toronto, and I only moved out of Toronto last year.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, I completely just said, I'm out of there. I can't stand being in the city anymore.
It's a
And
big decision.
oh yeah.
So that's another thing for pandemic depression. Maybe you plan to move away somewhere. But just this thing about culture, like even, I got to just say something. White supremacy, it really bothers me. And if you read the history books, it's nothing new. It's basically what fueled the British Empire, the French, and all these European empires. But it's like people are just like, oh yeah, like it's like if you want to know who you are, it's not by the color of your skin, it's by your geographic area, like where your family's from, right?
Hmm.
And even if like somebody's like 20% Irish and 30% Italian or blah blah blah, what my opinion is, choose one or choose them all. I don't know. You can, this month is Italy month and next month is Ireland month, but just get into your culture, learn your
Hmm.
culture, right? Because everybody has roots, right? And some of the roots are actually not that great. Like I found out in Norway where my roots are, there's the First Nations group there called the Sami, and they were same thing as Canada. They were pushed off the good land. They even took some of the ladies and sterilized them so they couldn't have babies. They did like some experimenting, really creepy things, right? So that's like the burden on Norwegian people. But they have other things where that are good. Like I think they've been reconciling with the Sami and the country. So there's good and bad in each culture, right? But it's good to know your roots, right?
Absolutely.
So you think, I think that can kind of lift off part of your depression, right? If you're feeling down, just knowing who you are.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and it's not just like, oh, this is who you are, but you make yourself who you are. You can kind of whatever, play with it. Right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think, we learn certain things in this world and we kind of take what we want. I mean, if I sat there and told somebody had told me who I am or a story or tried to teach me something, realistically, I think we all take little bits of what we want or what we need out of those stories.
So what if the Scott Simpson of 2050, jumped in a time machine and came back to 2021, and he said, "Oh, Scott, you've got to do this and this and this and this, and make sure you learn your culture." I don't know. Have you ever thought about that? If you could go back to your past self and you could set yourself straight, but it's like, well, I'm not saying you need to be straight now, but I mean, maybe let's say 10 years ago, somebody should
Oh,
have set me straight, right? But it's like, you see these movies where people go in a time machine. It's like, I don't know if I'd actually listen to the future me. I'd probably
I don't
tell
think
him
any
to
of us
take a
listen.
hike, right? It's like, who are you? It's like COVID. I don't believe you're real,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so cultures. Now, I was just wondering about, actually, I put some new things today. I woke up early for some strange reason. And I was thinking about, I don't know why, I started feeling guilty all of a sudden the other day. And I was just writing down all these people I'd wronged. And actually, funny story is, some of them I kind of made up to, what's the right grammar? I sort of reconciled with them. Can you believe
Oh,
it? Yeah. So it's like to say sorry and make restitution to people that you've wronged. And I'll give you an example. Like I borrowed this guy's van for a week, and then I had a choice. I had my car, which I had available, and another car. And then I fell asleep on a Sunday afternoon. I forgot to pick up my friend at the ferry from Vancouver Island. And so I rushed out there to pick him up. And I was all tired and sleepy because I just had a nap. And I took my friend's van. And guess what? I don't know why. I was so sleepy. I was in this stuck in traffic and I backed up and I backed into somebody.
Oh no.
and the bumper had a big dent in it. So my father, I brought it to his farm, and he's like, "Oh, son, this is nothing. Here's a piece of wood. Just stick it underneath, and look, the bumper's just as good as new." And then the guy, I gave it back, and then I think I met him a few months later, and he hated me. He didn't ever want to see me again. I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "You put wood in the bumper, and it cost me $600 to repair that bumper on that van, right?" And this was a long time ago, so 600 is cheap compared to now, right? But and then you know what? I carried that guilt for like years, and it just bugged me. I just think about it sometimes, or before I slept. And I just woke up one morning and say, you know what? I'm going to pay back this $600. And I wasn't very rich, so you know what I did? I just phoned him up and I said, I'm really sorry, and this is bugging me, and I want to just pay you $100 a month. So I did it until the 600
Nice.
was, and then we actually became friends again. Now, I think that if you try to say sorry to some people, they'll just tell you to go to wherever, right? They'll tell you to get lost. But some people will appreciate it. Some people might actually open up and say, you know what? I appreciate that you said sorry, and that helps me, right? And it helps you. So I don't know. Would you advise people to try to make up for some of the wrongs they've done?
Absolutely. I think making amends is so important. And, that's something that I've learned with sobriety. And, you know, some of us have done some stupid things. And, just going back and say, you know what, back when I did this, my bad. I really did not mean to do it. And just owning your mistakes. I think when you can realize, if you know yourself well enough, if you realize that you did something wrong, I think you should be able to say it on the spot. But if you're not, I think that people always appreciate it. And if somebody had came to me and said, 2 years ago, I did this, or I broke the fender in your car, and I really just want to apologize, I would probably say, well, I wouldn't even care, about the money or anything. I would just be like, wow, that was really thoughtful, that bothered them that much that they're coming back to me and just saying that in case there wasn't anything wrong.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think we need to teach all our kids and the young generation this is that sometimes you do something either by accident or on purpose, and it's wrong. It hurts somebody, and you think that yeah, that's it. You're going to forget about it, but it haunts you,
Hmm.
right? It's like and people think about, oh, everything is time is money, everything is money, but I think it actually like affects you so that you are less productive, and it just worry, and it just eats at you. So it it's probably worth if you took it to the like in British Columbia we have this work safe BC, and every finger on your body has got like, oh, this is like 300, this is 400, $500. It's almost like this piece of your heart, right? Just to have peace of mind, it's worth like 100,000. Right? Sorry to
Hmm.
monetize
Oh, sure.
everything. I don't like to think in money terms all the time, but sometimes we just think it's not worth it, right? Or even young people or even children, they think whatever, everybody will forget about this tomorrow, but it doesn't, it just stays there. So it's worth kind of making amends, right? And they teach that, like you
Oh, for
said, you
sure.
went through some programs and different things, right? They teach that, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Making amends and, understanding the stuff that you did wrong that maybe you didn't apologize for. Like, just understanding that, you tell somebody like, yes, you have made mistakes, and I think that you should recognize them, because if somebody swears they're not in the wrong, I mean, I think it's hard to change their mind. But if you give someone time and you say, think about how that made this person feel, and then do you understand why that, if they did that to you, how you would feel, like just thinking it from on a deeper level on how did I make this person feel, as opposed to, just saying like I did wrong.
Yeah, I heard about, somebody said the other day, I saw a quote, and they said, was it Mary Lou? Anyway, there's this famous lady. And basically it's like people not really going to remember you or your words, but they're going to remember, they might not even remember your actions, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. I thought
Hmm.
that's kind of weird, right? Everybody you meet, you're not really going to remember their words or their actions much, but the feeling they get from you, that's what they'll remember. I thought,
Yeah,
wow,
that definitely makes sense. That's powerful.
it is. It's like, and you, can I just say one thing? Like, I was going to add one more here. It's like, do your research. And I've been researching something, then people are going to think I'm crazy, but like, I just, it bothers me. And I'm always late on things. Last year there was what was it? The George Floyd protests and anti-racism and Black Lives Matter. And it was big in Toronto, right? And other places out where you are, right?
Oh yeah, there's some of that in Barrie as well.
Right, exactly. And then that's the time there was a video of this First Nations chief, I think, from Fort McMurray, Alberta, and the RCMP. It's just a young guy. He looked like he was around 28 years old. He did a football full on tackle for this kind of older guy who is a chief. And instead of just kind of like grabbing his arm and putting the handcuffs, he like ran from like he ran for a couple minutes or whatever and just bang and just like a serious football tackle. And anyways, so it recently I've just been wondering, because I'm researching this question, find out why. It's just like why do people act racist, right? And
Mhm.
why do people treat, for example, Black people the way they do, Africans, right? Or people, or indigenous people, right? Or even the Jews. Like, why does everybody hate on the Jews? Like, what's going on? What did they do? And I kept this, really bothered me, right? And then, sorry, we're talking about impressions, how you make people feel, right? And I remember sometimes I might have met some people, right? And
Mhm.
they acted a little bit strange around me, or maybe afraid. And sometimes I was thinking, well, maybe it's because I'm a white male and they've had bad experiences, right? And they're like, wow, here comes this guy, right? And it could even be women too, right? Sometimes you'll meet a woman and you wonder, why is she so afraid? It's like maybe she had a bad experience. So sorry, I'm not trying to get psychological here, but
Oh, it's all
um,
good.
it's just like, I can't read everybody's mind, right? So I can't like, oh, as soon as I meet somebody, I'll read their mind and yeah, I'll make you feel comfortable. But it's just kind of like knowing history and know how the relationships between the different groups are, and just kind of like, just make it your goal to put everybody at ease, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, where you live in the country, does there like different ethnic groups, and is there ever tensions, or is everybody sort of getting along?
Seems like in Innisfil, everyone's just kind of getting along. I mean, it's a friendly town.
Okay.
Um,
So
Not
you're
so
saying the
much,
First Nations people and the white settlers are getting along?
well, there's not that many First Nations people in Innisfil where I live.
Oh, okay. That's in another place.
So, and I think like because I've only lived here pretty much throughout this pandemic, I haven't seen a lot of people talking or anything like that. But to me, it just seems like Innisfil is just a friendly place.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And anyway, sorry, I had this other thing. One time I went through a stop sign in the middle of the night, and this was in Squamish, British Columbia, and we were having the Olympics in Vancouver 2010. And so what happened is that it was like very foggy, and I went through the stop sign. I just drove through because there's nobody in this little town, right? And a cop caught me, right?
Oh,
And I couldn't believe it, right? And it's another white guy. And then he says to me, well, you went through the stop sign. And I joked with him. I looked at him in the eye and I said, you know what? What am I going to hit? A mouse? It's like there's nothing on the street. And I don't know. He laughed and then he let me go. And then I told that story to a guy, I think it was in Squamish Nation or up in, it was like a Lilwat Nation up near Pemberton. And he said, if that were me, I would have been body slammed to the ground. I would have been handcuffed and I would have been staying in jail all night. And I'm
mhm.
like, what? And so, anyways, I've heard a few stories like that. And it just kind of made me realize that, like, maybe I'm being treated better than I could be treated if I were part of another group, right? And so, anyways, I don't know. During this pandemic, I don't know why I'm thinking all these things, but I'm just keep thinking like, how basically my goal is how can everybody get along and how can I contribute to it, right?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter if I'm friend of like Black people or Jewish people or indigenous people or whatever group, different groups. But I mean, it matters because I can be a role model. But it's just I want to see people get along, and I just like that's the sort of one of my pandemic questions. Like, how can I help everybody get along better? You know what I mean?
Well, I
I don't know.
think, and
So
I'll just share from this, like, on my opinion, is meeting people from all different ethnicities goes a long way. So there's certain things that, like, I wouldn't say to a certain ethnicity. There are certain things that, I, from knowing, Asian friends, Black friends, European friends, like all different ethnicities. There's just, and I don't know if the right word is a swagger, but just a certain thing, just understanding people. And, if you hang out with a group of Romanian guys or a group of guys from India, the way they communicate is just different. And recognizing that and knowing that sometimes, like, understanding, like, some people from ethnic, when I say ethnic, I'm talking like cultural in the way they talk, some of these things might clash. Like, one thing that's common that I'll say that really pissed me off from people, for the most part, from India, is it's common practice for them to say, like, oh yeah, 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 when you're trying to tell them something. To me, that rubbed me the wrong way. And then I started hanging out with the whole group, and they mostly were doing it to each other. That was normal. But in my point of view, I was like, are you going to listen to what I say? But I think, understanding and meeting all different groups of people helps you understand, like, why people say certain things or maybe use different words. And I think anyone that, can sit and talk and really understand where someone's coming from, I don't think there's too many people that most people would really hate or dislike.
right. I heard a story. I heard that, for example, some indigenous groups and then some maybe parts of the US, African Americans, I don't know where, but some, it's just like a cultural thing where people will not look each other in the eye when they're talking. Have you heard of that?
Mhm.
And they'll be kind of looking like elsewhere because in some cultures, if you look somebody in the eye, it's sort of like, a predator looking prey, like in the forest. Okay. It's like you look at that, look the cougar in the eye, the cougar will attack you. Right. So they're like, no, we don't look each other in the eye except on special occasions or whatever. I don't know. Have you heard something like that? Looking
No,
each
but
other in the eye.
what I would probably do if that situation ever happened, and I think it's, to a certain extent mirroring somebody. If they're doing something like that, like not staring you with the eyes, I probably would try not to stare, like not stare, but, you know, avoid eye contact a little bit. And I think if
Oh
if
yeah,
we kind of like,
mirroring.
yeah, I think that can go a long way with being friends with people. I think, and I'm not saying that I've mastered that, but I just know that if I kind of act or talk like the person that I'm talking to, they'll generally open up a little bit easier.
Right. And some women don't like to be looked in the eye very much, especially if they're from, say, Muslim or other like Orthodox or Catholic Christian countries, or maybe like very religious cultures. I don't know, maybe some Buddhist cultures or different kinds of cultures, right? It's like women will kind of put their eyes down, right? I've had some clients or students like that. And I'm like, why are they looking at the ground? Well, that's just part of their culture. They're not trying to offend me, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Toronto, where you were from before, like you must have really learned to deal with all kinds of people because it's a real melting pot there,
Oh yeah.
mixing pot. Wow.
So the schools that I had mostly grown up in, like in childhood, were primarily white schools. Um, but then I ended up going to college, and like I went to the most international school, and I believe it's the most international school in the world or Canada, and that was Centennial College. So there was tons of different people, and I absolutely love to meet, people for the most part tried to keep in each of their groups. So there'd be a group of this ethnicity, then a group of this one. And I try and make friends with at least one person from every single one of those groups. And
Wow.
I think it's powerful to just meet at least from different groups, or, it's say we're in an American Pie movie, you'd have the rockers, the cool kids, the stoners, the nerds. If you just meet one of each one of those people, I think you can learn a lot.
Wow. Exactly. I don't know. Have you ever heard the story like it's kind of like a mountain and you've got these purple flowers over here, you got these yellow flowers over here, you got these huge ones over there and these tiny ones here. And then it's kind of like that's the way every species, every kind of plants, everything, there's a variety, right? If we're all the same, we'd all jump off a bridge. It'd be just too boring, right? It's the variety that makes things cool.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why to me, everybody might have their own solution to pandemic depression, but to me, it's just kind of diving into that variety. Even though we're wearing masks and we can only talk to each other through the eyes, right? Or
Trying to
we're through
smile with our eyes.
Zoom. Oh my God, has people got a headache from Zoom yet? Think, hey, you should buy Zoom stocks.
Oh,
That's where
I,
the
I
money's
did
at.
actually a little while ago, but then I sold them.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Zoom stocks. I read this story. But anyways, yeah. So okay, well, I guess I'm gonna call it at that. But this whole thing. Now, we don't even know. I remember the beginning of this pandemic, there was somebody I work with, and she said, "Oh, my husband, he's like working in the hospital, and all of the, I guess, doctors and nurses got together, and they said this pandemic might last for like 3 years." And this was like a year ago. So it's like, oh my gosh, 2 more years to go. It's like, where's the next bridge? No, we got to survive, right? So it's like, yeah, we might be really in this for the long haul. And then have you heard the stories of the variants that are going on around you?
Oh
Like
yeah.
there's a United Kingdom,
We
South Africa, and then
Yep, we had a really bad case at a nursing home in Barrie, and I think every single person in that nursing home, except for two people, caught COVID.
so it's like averaging 50% more transmissible. It's kind of like supercharged COVID.
Apparently.
So I know I was looking on the news about fourth wave, and I'm like, what? Like we couldn't even believe there would be a second wave. And it's like, oh, we're in the third wave, and there's going to be a fourth wave. And it's like, and when I'm 92 years old, it's like, yay, Sonny, this is the 349th wave. Are you
Yeah.
used to it yet, Sonny? Still alive? As if you don't get pecked off by COVID. But it's like okay, we've got to like shift our mentality, right? It's like we've got to say, okay, let's survive and let's be happy. Let's not just survive. I want to have some joy, right? So
And I think more people need to just try their best and enjoy what we can.
yeah, I mean, you might not when you get if you're going back to work full time or doing something else after COVID, you might look back on this time with fond memories, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah. And when are you going to get that dog?
We're getting it the end of March. I'm actually getting it from Rama First Nations. It's like I think, an hour and a bit north. And yeah, just so excited for that. It's a
Okay,
husky mix.
end of March. Okay, well, you have time. You have time. So, and luckily, COVID can't jump onto dogs and then jump onto you, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like, yeah, stay away from my dog, COVID. Maybe all the dogs are going to have to mask up too, right? So, anyways, well, I hope you and your family will keep the joy. And this has been a really awesome conversation. And yeah, I think it's relevant. It's just like we've got to mentally survive COVID, right? Not just financially, not just like whatever from a health perspective, but mental health perspective. So, all right. I want to thank you, Scott, and I hope you will have a wonderful week and weekend and just take care.
And you as well.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.